Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Combo Breaker 99. I'm back with another video. All right, y'all. So I haven't talked about it much over here. I talked about it in a live stream, but as y'all know, Casey O'Neill, she's making her return to the octagon against one of the fighters that I said she needs to fight, Roxanne Modafferi, February 12th, 2022 for UFC 271. As y'all know, Courtney Casey, she's ranked number 15. She got into the rankings after her last win against Antonina Shevchenko, and Roxanne, she drops to number 12 this week. This is a major fight for both ladies. For one, Casey, she's stepping up in competition. And for Roxy, this is her last fight. She posted on her IG and on her social media that it's going to be her last fight. Roxy's retiring after this one. She said, "I'm fighting Casey O'Neill in February. Please tune in. This is fight number 50 and my last fight." And, I did listen to her interview with Ariel Helwani where she talked about why it's going to be her last fight. I want to talk about that in another video because there's just some other points that I want to cover about that whole situation with her, deciding to call it quits now, with a couple of health scares. But Casey O'Neill, as y'all know, she hit the scene hard coming into the UFC. She's 3-0 right now with all three finishes: Shanna Dobson, Laura Procopio, and Antonina Shevchenko. So, as y'all know, according to my standards, if you come into the UFC, you beat 3 unranked fighters, you should get a top 15, or you get into the top 15, maybe like at number 15, 14, or 13, right? Roxanne, as y'all know, she's been in and out. She's been in and out right now with some injuries. She's 1-2 in her last 3 fights, back-to-back losses to Taylor Santos and Viviane Araújo, and a win over Andrea Lee in a rematch. So time's been catching up to her. So I understand why she wants to call it quits. She's a former top 10 fighter. She's never really showed interest or hunger in fighting for the title. When she defeated Antonina and Macy Barber, she never really called out the champion or tried to make her way up that way. Instead she took on Lauren Murphy, lost that fight, right? And she's lost to some of these top prospects now in dominant fashion. So it's got to be one of those situations where you got to be like, okay, if I can't get to this level, what makes me think I'm going to get to the top 3 or get to the championship level or to a title eliminator, because I'm holding myself back, right? So that's kind of where she's at now. Casey O'Neill, I know how people feel about her, but like I said, she's a raw talent. 3-0 though, off of 3 unranked fighters. Hey, she deserves to get into the top 15, right? So my thoughts on this fight: look, I like this matchup. Like I said, I call for this one because this is a good test. It's not too difficult. A leap for Casey O'Neill. Casey brings a lot to the table with her hunger, heart, and her strength, and her ground game. But she needs a test against a very experienced and awkward fighter like Roxy. Roxy, again, former top 10 fighter that brings high-level BJJ, solid striking, and a pace that Casey hasn't seen yet. Casey, she needs that test against a patient fighter that just won't crumble under her pressure. You know what I mean? Like some fighters, she can just back up in her last couple fights and, they'll kind of crumble under that pressure she puts on. But somebody like Roxanne that brings that clinch game and that BJJ and that experience, we're going to see what type of work she can kind of counter against Casey O'Neill, and what type of adjustments Casey O'Neill might have to make in this fight. Can she make them, right? A fighter like Roxy, she brings that textbook 1-2 that can keep you honest and those surprise takedowns. So Casey, she's got to be careful for that. She's got to be careful of that. Casey O'Neill, she brings high pressure and a good clinch game, but her defense still needs to be polished. So when I look at the math here, early on, Roxy's hands versus Casey O'Neill's defense, that could spell danger. So that's something that she needs to really work on. And y'all heard me talking about it. Casey O'Neill, she's good in certain areas, but there's a lot of polishing up that needs to be done here. Defense, head movement. She has really good wrestling. She's strong, but her ground and pound as well still needs developing. She needs to work on how to turn over her punches and be a lot more assertive with those shots. Can't just be those little feather hits and just depend on your strength here. You got to throw those punches with authority. So that's something that she really needs to develop as she gets higher, how to turn her punches over. I can see why Roxy wants to make this her last fight, though, honestly, for medical reasons, which I said I'll talk about in another video. But after losing and fighting down, you really only want to do so much of that. You don't want to be a punching bag. If you come up short, that's one thing, but if you continue to get beat in dominant fashion after fighting down, it's best to just call it a day. So yeah, good test for Casey O'Neill. I'm looking at it right now as 50-50 because, to completely shut out Roxy, you have to have that physical strength. Of course, amongst other tools. But if you go back and look at the fighters I always tell y'all to look at, how they beat Roxy, they always came in stronger. You know, all the fighters that beat Roxy, they were always stronger, and they could always just shut down her takedowns, and they could just shut her down completely on the ground. So go back and do your research. Like I said, so it's still out on Casey O'Neill. It's still out on Casey O'Neill if she'll be able to have that type of strength. You know, you have to be that type of fighter that gives no breathing room. Can't let Roxanne get into a rhythm. So Casey O'Neill, she has to put that pressure on and be relentless. You know, put it to the test in this fight. You know, I don't think Casey O'Neill, you know, can win a controlled striking battle at a distance. You know, she has to be pressure, and inside fighting with decent hands. You know what I mean? She has to have some good turnover on her punches, like Viviana Rujo did, Taylor Santos did, Lauren Murphy. You know, those fighters had a good grasp of how to turn over a punch. So that's something that Casey O'Neill really needs to work on. But yeah, man, that's pretty much all I got on this one. Like I said, it's going down, Roxy's last fight. It'll be a good win for Casey O'Neill. You know, I'd rather see Casey O'Neill win because, you know, that will kind of weed out the old heads, even though Roxy is retiring. You know, if Casey O'Neill wins, that kind of, you know, puts the flyweight division in a better perspective, right? Because if she wins, that means she is learning something, but she also has to look different, in my opinion. Like, she can't look like she did against Shannon Dobson or Procopio. Every fight, you have to look better, right? Especially going into this one, you know. And it's hard to look good against Roxy. You know, that's why you have to give the fighters that beat Roxy a lot of props, you know, like Taylor, Vivian, Lauren Murphy, and Sarge, and so on. You know, those fighters, they were able to, you know, they were able to implement their game plan on Roxy all day long because they were that strong. So it's going to take that type of approach from Casey O'Neill going into this fight. And if she dominates or stops Roxy and sends her on her way in her retirement in that fashion, then she might be part of my quadruple threat. You know, we'll see. You know, she also has to look good. Like, she also has to like a potential threat. Like, her skills have to look polished, where we say she could give so-and-so trouble, like Jennifer Maia, Andrade, and then eventually the champion, right? So we'll still see. You know, it depends on what she looks like. So let me know, guys, what y'all think of the fight. Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Subscribe. Peace.